Good morning, everyone, for today's distinguished webinar series in AI and cybersecurity. Today's title is Recent Progress in Privacy Preserving DER Control and Perspectives on Energy Access Challenges. With us today, Dr. Mingxi Liu, Associate Professor, Electrical and Computer Engineering, University of Utah. Dr. Liu is an associate professor. He was an NSERC Postdoctoral Fellow with Energy and Resources Group at UC Berkeley. He received the Ph.D. degree in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada in 2016. Dr. Liu's broad research interests include control and optimization theories and their applications in power and energy systems, smart grid, and cyber physical systems. Dr. Liu is an NSF Career Awardee, class of 2022. He received the NSERC Postdoctoral Fellowship and NSERC Postgraduate Fellowship Scholarship doctoral from the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada in 2016 and 2014, respectively. He is an associate editor of the Advances in Applied Energy, IET Smart Energy Systems, and the IEEE Canadian Journal of Electrical Computer Engineering. He serves on the IEEE CSS Conference Editorial Board. Dr. Mingxi, it's a great honor to have you as part of the webinar series. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this for us. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much for this kind introduction. Let me put the slides on the full screen mode and share my screen. Can everybody see the slides
Yes, we can.
and hear me clearly?
Yes.
All right, cool. Thank you again for the very kind introduction. And first of all, I want to thank Prakash for inviting me to give this talk at the C2SR at this webinar series. Really my honor. So today I'm going to talk about two topics, one about the privacy preserving DER control and the other about the current energy access challenges. So the research of our group at the University of Utah is driven by the ever increasing renewable energy adoption and distributed energy resource integration. So let's think solar farms, wind farms, electric vehicles, energy storage systems, so on and so forth. So all of them are the catalyst for the current power grid decarbonization. But as we embrace those green technologies, we face two significant challenges. First, we need better engineering tools to maintain those green technologies so that we can keep the efficiency and the reliability of the power grid. And secondly, how can we deploy those green technologies to fill the current energy access challenges? So, from the fundamental research perspective, our research has been focusing on three key barriers to the renewable energy integration, say the scalability, privacy, and cybersecurity. In the past several years, we have been developing some new scalable optimization algorithms, devising and integrating privacy measures into the optimization design, and adding the privacy features, security features into the power system operation. And also beyond the power system, we have extended our obtained results into some interdisciplinary fields. For example, the connected automated vehicles, grid interactive efficient buildings, and so on and so forth. And another large part of our research has been focusing on addressing the current energy access challenges in the rural and native communities in the US. So we have been working with the local government and tribal government to generate holistic solutions to deploy the energy infrastructure in those areas. So first, let's have a look at some background information. So as you can see from this figure, the global power mix is experiencing some dramatic changes since 2000. In 2024, the wind and solar energy together will generate more power than the hydropower generation. So I saw some like a scratch on the slides. I don't know what happened. Anyway, and in 2025, wind and solar will each surpass coal as the major source of the power generation. And in 2025 and 2026, respectively, wind and solar will surpass the nuclear power generation. And then in the future, in 2028, it is expected that all of the renewable energies will account for 42% of the total power generation, with wind and solar account for about 25% of it. While these renewable energies can bring the undeniable environmental benefits, integrating the ever-increasing capacity of the renewable energy actually brings unprecedented challenges to the grid operation. And one of the major issue is the generation uncertainty and intermittency. So this figure shows the solar power generation of the California SO in 2023 in the 5-minute resolution, where we can easily see the generation intermittency and uncertainty. So in this case, if we don't have enough reliability service capacity, the power system reliability may be jeopardized, and the expected benefits from the renewable energy may be discounted. So traditionally, the independent system operators put all of the reliability chips on the large-scale power generating units that are relying on the fossil-based fuel. So acquiring more system flexibility and service capacity would require reserving more headroom and footroom of the generation units, which is not economic or efficient. It may also offset the environmental benefits brought by the renewable energy. So right now, it is very urgent to discover new sources for this additionally required power system flexibility. And fortunately, this additionally required flexibility can be efficiently and economically provided by the so-called distributed energy resources, or the DERs. And perhaps all of us are very familiar about DERs. Some common DERs would include the solar PVs, EVs, and energy storage systems. And we normally consider those DERs in the distribution network where the DERs are installed at residential houses or even at the community level. They normally communicate with the utility companies or the third-party aggregators through the smart meters and the two-way communication networks. So the installed capacity of the DERs has been constantly increasing during the past several years. For example, starting from 2010, the per watt price of the solar PV keeps decreasing in exchange of the constantly increasing installation capacity of the PV. And a similar trend actually exists for the electric vehicles. Also from 2010, the cumulative sales of the EVs in the US has been exponentially increasing. So with all of these observations and trends, our research tries to answer 3 questions. Say, what are the benefits brought by the DERs? And what are the impacts of the DERs on electric distribution system? And what are the barriers to the massive DER integration and control? And specifically, our research looks at the DER control and optimization problem, focusing on the high scalability requirement, major privacy concerns, and the surging cybersecurity risks. So in today's talk, I will first talk about the privacy-preserving cooperative distributed optimization, focusing on the discussions of privacy concerns in DER control and how we integrate the cryptology and secret sharing techniques into optimization design. And then I will briefly introduce the current energy access challenges in the native communities and our efforts into that. All right. So let's have a look at the first part about the privacy preservation problems in DER control and the multi-agent optimization. So in contrast to the traditional power grid, modern power system operations would require the stakeholders from both the supply and demand side to work together in order to maintain the grid reliability and efficiency. So this would involve the utility companies, the DSOs, the DNOs, third-party aggregators, the prosumers, and customers. Okay, and this procedure actually involves a lot of communications. And then, these communications normally contain some sensitive and private data that, for example, our daily power consumption patterns. If we don't have enough or efficient privacy measures, then the privacy breaches can easily happen due to both the internal and external adversaries for different purposes. So basically, whenever there is a communication, we need some privacy measures. But what if we don't have privacy measures or all of the privacy measures fail? We may have some impaired DER market and economy, hinder the deployment of the DERs, unwarranted invasions of the privacy, and even a degraded energy resilience. So this privacy issue actually attracted a lot of attentions from the legislations. Back in 2018, the European Union passed their General Data Protection Regulation. In 2020, California had their Consumer Privacy Act, and in 2023, both Virginia and Colorado got their own privacy acts. So our research is motivated by the ever-pressing privacy crisis. And specifically, in the power system, we look at how we should collect, process, and share the DER data and what techniques can be used to protect the privacy. In a very high level and a general idea, the DER control problem can be described as finding the optimal control sequences for a large number of DERs to optimize a mixed cooperative and competitive objective subject to the network operating constraints and individual operation constraints. And more specifically and mathematically, it can be formulated as a multi-agent cooperative optimization problem, or the so-called Markov problem, where each decision variable xi belongs to the agent I. In the objective function, we have this cooperative global objective g of x, and we also have the competitive individual objective function FIs. And each decision variable is subject to its local operating constraints, and all of the decision variables are subject to a global cooperative constraint set G. Okay? But solving this problem in real applications might be very challenging due to two major reasons. First, about the scalability. Because of the large number of DERs we are looking at, the large size of the distribution network, and the diverse heterogeneous constraints, local and global constraints. And another issue is about the privacy, because we need to guarantee the data confidentiality of different stakeholders against the various adversaries. So here, more specifically, our research is motivated to develop the new optimization algorithms that can handle the complex Markov problems with the high scalability and the privacy preservation features. So talking about the scalability, perhaps the best route to it is through some distributed optimization algorithms. So in the state of the art, there are many distributed optimization algorithm families like ADMM, RPDS, SPDS, and PMDS algorithms. All of those algorithms are developed based on the same idea of a projected gradient descent method, which requires a frequent back and forth information exchange, either between the agents or between the agent and the system operator. And this frequent communication actually exposes the entire algorithm to privacy breaches if there is no privacy measure. So the privacy breaches could happen if there exists an external eavesdropper who wiretaps all of those communication channels, tries to grab the information being transmitted, and use the information he got to infer the private and sensitive information of different agents. And another possible type of adversary is the honest but curious agent, who is a participant of the algorithm, who knows the structure of the algorithm, who receives the information from other agent. It also tries to, leverage all the information he either steals or knows to infer the private information of other agents. And the last possible type of adversary could be the coordinator or the system operator, who is also a participant of the algorithm, who receives the information from the agent and knows something about this algorithm. And it also tries to leverage all the knowledge available to it to infer the private information of other agents. So to protect the privacy, The most widely used method in the literature is the differential privacy, or DP. The essential idea of differential privacy is to perturb the public signals with some additive noises. But even though the DP-based method can well protect the privacy of all the agents, they normally suffer from the inevitable privacy accuracy trade-off, and they have to rely on some strong assumptions on the problem formulation. Beyond that, another very obvious option to privacy preservation is through the crypto systems or cryptography. Comparing with the DP-based method, cryptography does not rely on any noises, so they are normally lossless. However, existing methods based on the crypto systems are normally limited to some special problem formulations, like the distributed consensus problems. And those methods are normally not semantically secure. They require the very computationally intensive, fully homomorphic encryption. Okay. In recent years, some of the researchers are trying to develop the state decomposition methods, which do not rely on the noises or encryption or decryption. So it is very computationally friendly and with high accuracy. However, the only issue with that is state decomposition method can only be applied to average consensus problems. So the goal of our research is to develop new optimization algorithms that with high accuracy that can be applicable in general micro problems that can achieve a high scalability that can enjoy privacy preservations with the controllable additive computing and communication overhead. Okay, so now let's enter part two. Let's see how we integrate the crypto systems into the distributed optimization design. So first of all, what does a crypto system do? All right. So suppose Alice has a secret, plain text secret to send to Bob. So instead of directly sending the plain text secret to Bob, Alice first generates an encryption key and uses an encryption algorithm to encrypt the plain text secret into a ciphertext secret. She then sends the ciphertext secret to Bob. And after Bob receives the ciphertext secret, he uses the decryption key and the decryption algorithm to recover the plain text secret. So it's a very simple procedure. All right. And the simplest crypto system is perhaps the single model crypto system. So as an example, suppose Alice has a plain text secret m equals 42 to send to Bob. Before sending, Alice and Bob agree with the two keys, k equals 23 and n equals 97. All right. Alice then uses these two keys to do m plus k mod n, resulting in a ciphertext c equals 65. She then sent this ciphertext c equals 65 to Bob. And after receiving that, Bob uses the same key, k and n, to do c minus k mod n, resulting or recovering the plain text secret m equals 42. Of course, there are many different crypto systems. Let's say the symmetric, asymmetric, private key and public key, different lengths of the keys. But here, I just want to use the simplest crypto system as an example to illustrate our design idea. Okay, let's have a look at the more specific micro problem that we'll be dealing with. In this problem, we want to minimize the 2 norm squared of the linear combination of the decision variables xi together with the global vector c. And also we have the competitive individual objectives fi. Each decision variable xi has a local constraint, and all of the decision variables are cooperatively constrained in this linear inequality constraint together with a global vector d. And here we regard AUI, XI, FI, capital XI, and AGI as the local information that should be only available to the agent I. And the global vector C and D should be the secret of the system operator. Okay. So as I mentioned before, most of the contemporary distributed optimization algorithms are designed based on the projected gradient descent method or the PGM method. That is, in each iteration, each agent needs to update its own decision variable xi by moving the previous iteration's value towards the descending direction of the relaxed Lagrangian, and then project the result back onto the local constraint site. At the same time, the system operator needs to update the dual variable by moving the previous iteration's value towards the ascending direction of the relaxed Lagrangian and then project it back to its own site. But when we are calculating the gradient with respect to the primal decision variable of agent I, we found that it requires the private information of all of the other agents and the global vector C. And the calculation of the gradient with respect to the dual variable also contains all of the private information of other agents together with the global vector D. So basically, we are asking everybody to share everything with everybody. If there is no privacy measures, then the privacy breaches could happen. So in order to protect the privacy, we want to integrate the simplest single mod crypto system into the simplest projected gradient-based method, right? To do so, we need to rely on the homomorphic features of single mod. That is the additively homomorphic feature and the multiplicatively homomorphic feature. So that is, if we decrypt the summation of some encrypted messages, it is equivalent to calculating the summation of the plaintext messages. Here, the E denotes the encryption algorithm, D denotes the decryption algorithm, Z denotes the plaintext message, and W and M denote the keys. And similarly, for the multiplicatively homomorphic feature, if we want to decrypt the product of some encrypted messages, it is equivalent to directly calculating the product of those plaintext messages. Okay. So the homomorphic feature is a very beautiful feature that allows us to directly do arithmetic operations over the ciphertext. However, I want to mention that not all of the crypto systems have homomorphic features, and the homomorphic encryption is computationally expensive. So now comes to the question, how should we design the information flow, and where should the single mod step in order to protect the privacy? Here is what we developed for the entire information flow. So in each iteration, right, the system operator separately randomize its global vectors C and D for each different agent, and sends each agent the randomized C and D, say the RIC and SID. Okay, and here we require the summation of all the R's to be 1 and the summation of all the S to be 1. Okay, but they are random. And after receiving those randomized C and D, each agent will use its own local and private information, AUI-XI and AGI-XI, to add those randomized C and D respectively, resulting in the plaintext ZCI and ZDI. Okay, it then encrypts those ZCI and ZDI to become the encrypted ZCI and ZDI. Okay, so each agent would have its own encrypted ZCI and ZDI. Then all of the agent would send those two pieces of encrypted information to the system operator. But here I like to note that the system operator knows nothing about the crypto system. After receiving all of those encrypted messages, the system operator simply adds all of the encrypted ZCS together and adds all of the encrypted ZDS together to result in the encrypted ZC and the encrypted ZD, which are actually the key information needed by all of the agents to conduct both the primal and the dual updates. The system operator then broadcasts those two pieces of encrypted messages to all of the agents. After receiving those two encrypted messages, each agent needs to decrypt those two messages easily and use other, local and private information to conduct both the primal and due updates. So far we have completed one iteration and we have successfully integrated the single mount crypto system into the algorithm design. And I want to mention again that the system operator here is just a data aggregator or data processor. It knows nothing about the crypto system. Everything he knows is encrypted. Okay. So for this developed framework, we have developed and proved several key theorems regarding the correctness and the privacy level. So I'm not going to show you the detailed derivation and proof because of the time limit, but I do want to walk you through those the high-level descriptions of those theorems. So regarding the correctness, we simply proved that the crypto system infused distributed optimization algorithm actually can maintain the convergence and optimality of the original algorithm. That means if the original algorithm has the awesome convergence and optimality, they are not going to be contaminated by the infusion of the crypto system. Okay. And then regarding the security level against the system operator and external eavesdropper, we have proved that solving the encrypted data sequence received from any agent is as hard as approximating the greatest common divisor or the GCD problem by using classical computing. So of course, the GCD problem is not a problem in front of quantum computing, but I like to say, quantum computing is temporarily out of our discussion at this moment. So when talking about the security level against the honest but curious agents, we have to analyze the view of the agents, which is the information available to each agent at each in the iterations. So we simply want to prove that there exists a polynomial time simulator S that could generate a set of data that is computationally indistinguishable with the view of the agent I. So if this is approved, it leads to the conclusion that any agents cannot infer the private information of other agents by simply using its own available data or information. So I'd like to show you some simulation results, but comparing with other control performances, like privacy is a very abstract term. It's very hard to demonstrate or visualize what is privacy. So perhaps the best thing to do is to see the data being transmitted. So what we did was conducting a simulation for a four-agent, one system operator, a cooperative optimization problem, and we implemented on a Raspberry Pi platform with the crypto engines. Okay, so from the simulation results on the left, we can easily see the optimality and the convergence of both the primal and dual variables are not contaminated by the crypto system. And on the right-hand side, I'm showing the data being transmitted in all of those iterations. So the scale for the y-axis here is about the 10 to the power 15, and we have chosen a very large prime number as the key. So basically the data is everywhere, right? I mean, you can just imagine in a very rigorous way that if you don't know anything about the crypto system, you shouldn't be able to infer any useful information from this random data, right? Okay, so I want to quickly summarize this part. So for this line of work, we successfully synthesized the cryptography into the distributed optimization design. We have provided several proofs regarding the privacy levels against the honest but curious agents and system operators for different purposes. And more importantly, we have relaxed the requirement on the crypto systems to only the additively homomorphic crypto systems. And the framework we have developed, it can be applied to both the private and public key-based crypto systems, which means it has a generalized existing results. And along this line, we have also explored other information flow architecture and different crypto systems. So if you are interested, definitely go to read some of our other papers. I will later share the slides with Prakash. So if you need that, you can ask either Prakash or me for the slides. Okay. All right. So because I only have about 15 minutes, so I will leave all the questions to the last 10 minutes without any questions. All right. So while we were exploring different information architectures and the information flow architectures and this crypto systems, we actually faced a significant challenge, no matter how we adjust the different parameters. That is the computing load, right? The encryption and decryption processes, especially on the large scale vectors, involves a huge computing load, which put a lot of pressure on the edge node or the end node DERs. So at that moment, we started to think, is there a solution that would still allow us to use the privacy features of a crypto system, but with less computing load? Then we came across this technique called secret sharing. Okay. So what does a secret sharing do? So suppose there is a manager or a secret holder who wants to distribute a secret omega to n agents, right? And this secret holder will first divide this secret through some algorithms, divides this secret into multiple shares of the secret, and then distribute each share to a single agent, right? And then in order to recover the secret, at least the D agents are needed to work together to get the secret. Okay. And the correctness of the secret sharing is actually backboned by the polynomial interpolation theory. So more specifically, so in the very first step, suppose the manager wants to share a secret. The manager firstly constructs a random polynomial of the degree d minus 1 with the secret as the constant and all of the coefficients to be random, right? It then generates n random integers and generate n input-output shares by using this random polynomial, then distributes each share to an agent, right? And then in the very last step, after each agent receives the secret shares, at least the deal of them needs to work together by using this formula to recover the secret. So it's also a very simple procedure. But here comes to the question again. How should the information flow and where should the secret sharing step in to guarantee the privacy? So what we proposed and developed is a hierarchical communication architecture that relies on some cloud-based DR control platform. So in this architecture, we have the grid operator being responsible for generating the grid operating objectives, grid operating constraints. It communicates with the cloud-based DR control platform to send the control instructions and monitor the grid status. The cloud-based DR control platform will be responsible for providing some computing power. It also communicates with the different DR aggregators to send the control instructions and collect the aggregated information. And each aggregator can take care of one or more DR clusters or be directly responsible for individual DRs. Okay, so for this framework, we consider each bus in a distribution network as an agent, right? Or a cluster. And then we ask it to aggregate the decision variables for DERs connected to it, right? And then we still want to use the simplest projected gradient descent method. And then each bus will act as an agent to calculate the subgradients and perform the primordial updates for all the DRs connected to it. So that means we would require each bus to exchange their decision variables to conduct both the primordial updates, which is the idea of the projected gradient descent method. However, in each update at bus I, we need to concern the privacy of a specific term. So here I have omitted a lot of derivations, but let's just focus on this very simple term, which concerns the privacy. So the privacy of this term di contains the decision variables from all of the other buses. And more specifically, it's the term pi I p tilde, where the p tilde contains the decision variables of other buses. So how did we do it? Right? So here comes the very complicated part. So suppose we have in total C clouds in this cloud-based DER control platform, right? And in each iteration, we ask each bus I to obfuscate its private input element-wisely by a random polynomial of the order d minus 1, of course, with the secret being the constant and all of the other coefficients AIs being random, right? We then ask each cloud U to generate a random integer alpha U and broadcast it to all of the buses. That means each bus will receive in total C random integers from the clouds, right? And then each bus I needs to generate the shares by using its random polynomial and sends the corresponding share to the corresponding cloud. Okay, that means that each cloud U will in total collect n secret shares from the n buses. Okay, and those n secret shares are from different polynomials. Okay, and after receiving that, the cloud U needs to multiply the received output with the corresponding bus-specific coefficients in the pi I vector to obtain a new input-output pair, or the so-called securely processed secret shares. So far, the cloud does not know anything about any secret. Everything it receives are being randomized by this polynomial, right? Okay, after obtaining this securely processed secret shares, each cloud U needs to send the corresponding securely processed secret shares to the corresponding bus. That means each bus I will collect in total C securely processed secret shares. Okay, and after receiving that, this set of data is enough for bus I to reconstruct the secret, the aggregated secret pi I p tilde by using the secret sharing theorem. Okay, so throughout the entire process, no bus know any exact information of other agents' decision variables. The cloud does not know anything about the exact information of the other agents. Okay, so this so far we have successfully integrated secret sharing into the algorithm design. So the major theorem we have developed for this framework is regarding the privacy preservation against the different adversaries. So here I will just omit the discussion of this, the statement of the theorem, but I just want to show you the rough idea of proving the privacy level. So similar to the crypto system-based approach, to show the security level or privacy level against the honest but curious agents, we have to prove that there exists a polynomial time simulator that can simulate the view of each bus I. That means the data generated by the simulator is going to be computationally indistinguishable with the view of agent I. And then for the external eavesdroppers, we proved that with all of the available information the external eavesdroppers can wiretap, it is not even possible for this eavesdropper to construct a simulator. Then we don't need to even talk about how to recover any secret from the data being transmitted. Okay, so this is a very high-level introduction to the proof. So if you are interested, definitely read our paper on it. Okay, so to show you the performance. So we implemented this algorithm into the DER control problem for the power loss minimization. But I'm not going to show you other control performances, but focus on this privacy part. So here you see two curves, right? The blue curve and the red curve. So the blue curve is the polynomial randomly generated by one of the agents to protect one of the elements in this private vector, okay? And the red curve is the simulated polynomial generated by another agent using all of the information available to it. So what we can observe here is that those two curves are very close to each other, which is good because that means the simulator is doing the right thing, okay? And which indirectly proved that, okay, the view of the agent I can be simulated by a polynomial time simulator. And again, this is a very abstract measure, not as easy as those convergence and optimality. We compared this secret sharing based method with the homomorphic encryption based method and the projected gradient descent method. So we found that the average computing time of the homomorphic encryption based method are significantly higher than the other two methods, and the average per message bit length is also significantly higher. And regarding the secret sharing based method, it only requires the minimum time for share generation and secret reconstruction. And it has exactly the same average per message bit length with the PGM method. But here I want to mention that the secret sharing based method, even though it has the same per message bit length with the PGM method, it does involve multiple steps of the communication, as we discussed above, like between the clouds and the agents and so on and so forth. And it must involve the third party cloud into the communication to realize the entire framework. Okay. To quickly summarize, so in this line of work, we have successfully integrated secret sharing into the distributed optimization to guarantee the privacy of the agents and system operator against the individual and including honest but curious agents as well as the external eavesdroppers. So it has a rather lower computing cost comparing with a crypto system-based approach. And what is more important is that this framework can be used in the distributed, decentralized, and hierarchical computing structures. Okay, and we also have several other works addressing similar problems, but with the different settings. So if you're interested, go to read those papers. Okay, now so far I have talked about addressing the privacy issues in the DER control problem, which will ultimately contribute to enabling the coordination and control of the heterogeneous equipment, appliances, EVs, PVs, etc., in maintaining the grid reliability and efficiency. So this actually closely aligns with the concept called the connected community. Okay. But what is a connected community? So the Department of Energy defines the connected community as a group of grid interactive efficient buildings with diverse, flexible end-use equipment and other DERs that collectively work together to maximize the building and grid efficiency while satisfying occupants' comfort level. Okay. So this concept of a connected community is actually blooming in the entire United States. As you can see from this map, we have currently about 50 connected community projects across the US, and most of them are on the West Coast and East Coast. And all of those projects are either on some university campuses or in some advanced pilot communities that are equipped with, say, the smart inverters, smart meters, the faster two-way communication networks, advanced cloud-based control platforms, all of those fancy stuff. Okay. And then let's have a look at another map, which shows all of the Native American reservations in the US, where the purple ones denote the federally recognized tribes, and the green ones denote the state recognized tribes. So what's the point here by showing the two maps? So the point reviews when we try to overlap those two maps. Okay, so it seems like all of those connected community projects are trying to escape from the native reservations. So Utah, New Mexico, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, wherever there is a native community, there is no connected community project. Is this just a coincidence? So let's have a look at this area, which is the Navajo Nation, and to see what is actually happening there. So Navajo Nation is the largest Indian reservation in the US. It spans across Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah with over 17.5 million acres of land, which is very similar to West Virginia, right? And currently there are about 173,000 Indian residents living on the reservation, and about 36% of them lack access to electricity. If we look at the entire US, this number is only 1.4%. And for all of the Native Americans, that number is 14%. So definitely, Navajo Nation has the worst energy connectivity issue. So those houses or those residents are not even connected to the power grid or electricity, then where should the concept of a connected community step into those areas, right? So next, I'm going to take you for a quick walk in Navajo Nation to see what is happening there, what's the issue over there. In this picture, I'm showing you the typical residential housing in Navajo Nation, right? So the blue one and the red one, they are the residential houses. So here you cannot see any power pole, no overhead power line, and I can tell you there is no underground power line. So there is no power, and the people living there are still using fire for heating and lighting. Okay, and then this is another typical housing situation in Navajo Nation. The good thing is we have a power pole. Okay, and we have in total 3 houses, 1, 2, and 3 in the back. So among the 3 houses, only this one in the back is connected to this power pole, right? And the other 2 houses in the front, they also use electricity, but they use the electricity by running the extension cords. If you look carefully here, using the extension cord to get connected to the house in the back. You may be surprised that I'm only steps away from the power pole. Why I cannot get connected to it? So this is a very interesting thing in Navajo Nation called the homestead lease. If you don't have the homestead lease, no matter how close you are to the power pole, you are not even allowed to connect it to it. So this is another house connected to the electricity by using the extension cords. So, but the extension cord is not designed for this purpose. And normally in Navajo Nation, those houses are, very far away from each other. So they normally need to connect 2 or 3 very long extension cords to get electricity. And the power loss on those lines can be actually felt by your fingers, by placing your fingers on it. And those lines are normally exposed on the ground directly. Guess what is the major reason for the power outage in those areas? It's the dog chewing those power lines. Okay. And also this type of connectivity between different lines is very vulnerable, especially in the rainy days. So now you see those houses, we can say they are connected to power grid. They got electricity, but can we say they are in the connected community? No, right? What about the renewable energy in those areas? So if we look at this solar radiance map of the entire US, we can see Navajo Nation in this area has the top tier solar resources. Now let's zoom in a little bit to the El Capitan community where we have been working in. This community is in this red polyhedron, okay? So the local utility called NTUA is definitely aware of the abundant solar resources in this area. So they built and operate this 55 megawatt solar farm in this green area. However, even though those homes are only, let's say, 1 mile, 2 miles away from this solar farm, they got 0 power from it. And what is more interesting is that the utility, NTUA, they provide this solar PV plus battery plus wind turbine kit for about $200 a month. But based on our test, those kits barely work. Okay, especially for the wind turbine, it barely spins. Okay, interesting, right? So after many discussions and workshops with the community leaders and elders in the tribe, we have actually identified many barriers and challenges to the infrastructure deployment in the native communities. First of all, the federal fundings that focus on the low-tech practical infrastructure development, specifically for native communities, are very limited. And the application procedure is complicated enough to scare away those tribal applicants. Because the tribal government, they are normally short of staff, they got nearly zero experience in grant writing and project management. The infrastructure over there either not even exist or is outdated. The special geographic condition, like the sandy soil condition, dust, windstorm, so on and so forth, makes the deployment of the infrastructure extremely hard. Some cultural factors, like the need for grazing land, cultural preservation, and homestead lease, makes it extremely hard to form a rather large village to enjoy the centralized power solution. And some political factors like the weak governance, the poor coordination, and long council processes actually fosters the monopoly of the local utility. So in the past several years, our team at the University of Utah has been working with the local government to generate some solutions to enable the communities to get connected to the power grid or connected to electricity and make the future connected dynamic communities possible. Our vision is that let's just forget about those high technologies. Let's forget about the formulas. Instead of asking the communities to get adapted to those high technologies, let's ask the high techs to get adapted to the local communities. So in the past several years, we have been working under DOE to implement our decentralized DER-based microgrid in different areas in Navajo Nation. This is just one example in the Kayenta area. Okay, so to quickly summarize this, I only need another 2 minutes, Prakash, if you allow me. Okay, to quickly summarize this, we have identified, a substantial gap in access to the basic infrastructure between the native communities and the average population. To improve the situation, we definitely need some partnerships between academia, nonprofits, and native representatives, specifically for the capacity building. And what is more important is that the efficient infrastructure design in the native communities may look very different from what exists in other places. So we, as the academia, we need to push for the R&D in those local low-tech communities instead of just pushing for the high-tech R&D in urban areas. All right, so in the last 1 minute, perhaps, I'd like to briefly mention some future directions we are currently working on. So as I mentioned before, in order to realize the integration of the crypto system into the distributed optimization, we have to sacrifice some structural features of the algorithm to allow each agent to do both the primal and due update. But we are currently working on to re-enable the system operator to take over the due update to preserve the original algorithm feature. But the challenge is that how to conduct the Euclidean projection over ciphertext directly. So to do that, we are currently developing a proximal function method to enable this Euclidean projection over the ciphertext. And another issue lies in the usage of a common and a universal private key. So we are currently working on to enable the agents to use heterogeneous crypto systems to further improve the privacy level of the entire algorithm. And the last, but perhaps the biggest issue is that all of the crypto systems are facing significant challenges in front of quantum computing. So that's the reason why we are currently exploring the possibilities to integrate quantum computing and quantum crypto systems into the distributed optimization. Okay. So in the very end, I'd like to thank all of my previous students, current students, and collaborators in those works, especially my former PhD student, Dr. Xiang Huo. And I also want to thank all of those funding agencies for their support. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. I'd like to take the questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mingxi, for a fascinating talk. It's so interesting. Also, the impact thing that you talked about, 14% for native communities still have lack of access to electricity, and that reiterates the impact how your research is making there in capacity building. It just sheds another interesting reality that what we all need to look into. So I think the questions, so if you have questions, please, this is the time to ask. We can let you also speak. I see a number of faculty also joining, Dr. Hu, Dr. Zhang, Dr. Rasoli. If you have any questions, feel free to ask um, as well. Anybody has a question to start with? While we wait for a question, maybe I'll start with the first question. Um, when you talk about the cost savings using in a context of distributed optimization of this uh, all these dual updates that you're talking about, how do how do you see the side channel attack perspective? And is there a way that people can look at using timing and power analysis to compute these additive or multiplicative operations through whatever the algorithms that you're running? Is it even possible? It
Well,
has to run on some hardware, and I was just looking at to see the reverse engineering way. Do you see anything done in that context?
right. So I think that's a very good question. Let me actually try to understand it clearly. So what you were talking about is that what if the entire crypto system is hacked? And then that means that someone got the knowledge of the crypto system and can just leverage the data being transmitted. Even though it is encrypted, they still can infer the information. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a perfect question. So if we only use the simulation, let's say software, to do the encryption, decryption, then that is highly likely that's possible. That's a reason why I'm currently working with some of our CE faculties in developing this crypto engine on hardware directly, so that all of the encryption and the decryption is done on the crypto engine itself. So this would still, you know, have some issues, but with less issues than the purely software-based in crypto systems. Does that answer your question? That's an issue. I am aware of that. So
Okay.
that means if we don't trust anything, then there is no privacy.
Mhm. Another interesting question that what did you encounter any infeasible solutions, unboundedness when you talk about this multi-objective agent coordination, sharing common private key? You know,
Uh,
uh,
so you
and
are
when
talking about the infeasibility of the
in terms of the optimization, right? Because when you talk about all the dual primal coordination and cooperative and competitive, right? And one of the things that I had questioned was also to see connect to this. If you are you using any decomposition based algorithms like Bender's decomposition or some kind of dancing wolf decomposition? Have you even thought about running local models using decomposition coordinate with the global models, and still figure out a way to address this convergence and some level of unboundedness and infeasibility. When you look at really large DER type of scenario.
Right. Okay, so that's another very good question regarding the feasibility and scalability of the optimization algorithm, especially with the large scale, let's say the encrypted messages. So it is possible to decompose the entire problem into several small pieces so that each agent can only needs to deal with a small problem. However, we still need to look at the specific problem formulation. If the entire problem, if the overall problem is separable in the sense of a state decomposition, then we can do this. However, in most of the cases of the DER control, the objective and even the constraints that they are highly cooperative. That means all of those decision variables are coupled, strongly coupled in both the objective function and the constraints. In this case, it's going to be extremely hard to decompose the original problem into the small problem while keeping the accuracy and the performance of the, or let's say the optimality of the results. So rather than using the decentralized method, which did that way, we'd like to do the distributed optimization so that we can take care of the, let's say, the coupling effect of all the decision variables. Yeah.
Thank you. And can you go back to slide 44 while others have any questions? Feel free to. I want faculty to also questions. Dr. Hu, Dr. Zhang, you're there listening, and maybe you can ask some interesting question. I don't want. How do you, what is this pi I coefficient that you talked about? How did you derive those coefficients when you said those are bus coefficients, right? Is it something uh, that you, uh-huh.
Yeah, it is something about the network topology, let's say the distribution network parameters, which should be held by the cloud-based DR control platform.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And you have that, you derive it from the topology. Okay.
Right. A topology, like the lines, every setup of the distribution network. It's
Okay.
not, it's a secret to the cloud, not a secret to the agents. Yeah.
Okay, I have one question. Homomorphic encryption is an encryption strategy for computing data over encrypted in transit. Can you touch on computational cost or optimization that agents will incur?
Which one? This one?
I'm just reading the question.
Oh, no, sorry. Say that
Uh,
again.
there's a question on the chat, So can you touch on computational cost or optimization that agents will incur, and what are the costs that agents are, how do you rank the cost among the agents? What are the typical, is it overhead cost of,
Let me read this. Homomorphic encryption is an encryption strategy for computing data over encrypted data in transit. Can you touch on the computational cost optimization that agents will incur? Oh, yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So here's the question. So it is not like the homomorphic edit. Let's put it this way. It is not like adding those encrypted messages is computationally intensive. It is not multiplying those encrypted messages is computationally intensive. It is a crypto system that has the fully homomorphic feature that is inherently computationally intensive because it needs to use a rather long length of the keys and it has its internal encryption decryption algorithm itself that costs a lot of computing power. That can be seen from the comparison of the simulation results at the very end of the secret sharing part, that you can see the encryption decryption itself causes, like 100 times more computing time than, the secret generation part. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Did I answer
cool.
your question?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. So, let's see. Any other questions, guys? If I have 25 people here, could you ask some questions? Okay. Dr. Juming, do you want to ask that question on audio? Okay.
Yeah,
We have, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead, Dr.
yeah,
Hu.
I'm
Yeah.
here. Yeah, hi, Prakash. Thanks for inviting Dr. Mingxi Liu, and thanks for the presentation. So I'm a faculty in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at UND here, and my background is using reinforced learning for UAV operations. So I also do multi-agent reinforcement learning. So in my research, I usually face the challenge that reinforcement learning is hard to satisfy some problem constraints. So from my publication, I also see you use reinforcement learning. So I'm wondering, or can you share an experience how you handle these kind of challenges?
Very good question. That's also something we are currently working on because, as we all know, like the learning-based method always suffer from this issue that the constraints, especially the hard constraints, cannot be satisfied all the times. So, what we are currently doing is that there is several ways. The first way is that you can set a really a big reward or penalty for the violation of those constraints. However, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Still, we are investigating what's the reason for that. And the second part is like handling the optimization techniques. You can convert the hard constraints as a softer constraints in optimization in the objective function, so that you convert those hard constraints into also a penalty-like objective or reward. And then we are also exploring another possibility called the safety constraint, the multi-agent reinforcement learning, that we have to learn the data of some safety related data. For example, the voltage violation or the thermal violation, so on and so forth. So it is still an open topic, to be honest. We don't have a very definite answer to this question, but we are still trying very hard.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your experience. Yeah, because for UAV operations, they also have a lot of hard constraints like safety, resilience. Yeah, so I'm also exploring Lagrangian optimization with reinforcement learning and also control barrier functions.
Yeah.
And also I'm working on UAV communication network now. So I think maybe we can talk more after the presentation. Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure, right, no
Thank
problem.
you, Dr. Hu. Dr. Hu is a new faculty. She has done phenomenal work on reinforcement learning and formal logic, and I'm really excited to work with her as well. So maybe we can get to bring her some proposals. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hu.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see. Any other questions we have? It's already past 10 more minutes. I don't want to hold Dr. Liu. Okay, thank you, Dr. Liu, for your time today. I think we'll just close the webinar, and I think you will receive a nice plaque from UND and for your time, and appreciate always for all your support in working with us. And thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prakash, again for inviting me to this talk, and I definitely love working with you on different projects and proposals. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the great questions again.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, bye.